Cal Ripken. How's it going? Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Great seeing you. It's been too long.
It has been way too long. We used to play pickup basketball almost every night in the wintertime, and COVID has really screwed up our game.
It really has. That was something that I think that we both look forward to all the time. I've had the itch for it. I don't know about you. And it was really cool because I think the initial time you just came up to us. We were playing one night, and that's how we met.
Oh, I was dying to play. I was dying for some pickup basketball.
And then you're the guy I could rely on the most. Be like, oh man, we're gonna have enough numbers. Oh no, Jake's in. I loved it. So
I was always up here anyway at the gym, and that's all. That's really just all gone now, which is a shame. But
it is. Eventually, I think we're all gonna get past this. But we'll wait our turn. We'll wait it out, and it'll be even better when we come back next year.
Oh, how fun is that? I'm gonna be out of shape for sure getting up and down that court.
The feeling when you play basketball for the first time, when you haven't in a while, and then you feel okay that night, I guess, like, oh, I can the next day.
Sore.
Oh, a little bit.
You can't move. You can't move.
All the way up and down. You don't want to get out of bed. Maybe that's how I feel. I think that's how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm supposed to be training for a living, and I feel terrible.
It's all these sports are just a different type of in shape, whether it's like we had an indoor box league that I was playing in, and it's quick movements, different type of shape than pickup basketball. And then one summer I did jiu-jitsu for a summer, and like I thought I was like in training for D1 lacrosse. I felt like I was in good shape. I was running all the time, had just come off of a season, lifting all the time. I did one round of jiu-jitsu, just tried it out, and I was like, wow, I am in terrible shape.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing is that, like you said, each sport or what you're doing, it's a specific training for the most part you're doing, and it's way different than if you go in the gym and you're lifting weights and you're feeling strong, or you're even doing some plyometric stuff. But when you have to have your body be in different positions, so that you're not used to, it's crazy how great a physical shape you might be in for your specific sport. It really is irrelevant. Your body says, you know what, I'm not used to this. You're going to feel it tomorrow. And it's crazy. It's fascinating. But I think that's why and I think that's why you like to see people do more multiple things with sports. And I think I love that. And I know it's Gilman's culture of having people play multiple sports. I think that's a good thing for your overall self as an athlete. So
for sure.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And even if it's like yoga, you're doing yoga for the first time.
Yes.
I've done some hot yoga and just some yoga at Core Power up the street.
Same.
And I look around and the women in there are like 80 years old, and I'm gassed. I have to take a rest, and they're crushing it. They don't even have water.
Yeah, I just like it's funny. The first times I got into that, because my trainer was saying, oh, you should maybe consider doing a little yoga. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll work on some stretches. And I get in there, and I feel like I'm going to show up the whole place, or you have this confidence, and they're like, okay, get into this pose, that pose. One, I don't know what pose to get into. I'm looking around constantly trying to see what the right thing to do. And then meanwhile, they have perfect form, can hold their balance. And here I am, I'm stumbling, I'm drenched in sweat.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, you know what? It's humbling. It was very humbling. And I love it. But definitely the confidence got hurt a little bit, for sure.
Right, because you think you're in good shape. You think you can show up to a yoga class with the middle-aged women, and no, it's just not how it goes.
They are light years ahead of me.
Yeah,
I got so much to learn, but it's all but that's the experience. That's why I love trying different things, especially in the athletic world.
So maybe you can talk about Gilman and the sports that you played growing up, and how these different sports have influenced you now in your baseball career.
Yeah, so first off with Gilman, I think more in middle school. I don't know if it's still that way now, but middle school is where we really started to compete, interscholastically and whatnot. And growing up, I always played soccer, basketball, and baseball were my main sports. And when I got into middle school, I started football for a little bit, and football only lasted for me for about a year or two. And soccer, I didn't continue in Gilman. I continued it outside. But then once I got into high school, I did 1 year of football my freshman year, but my focus went to baseball and basketball. And looking back, actually, I wish I had kept up, even doing soccer. I wish football, I kind of decided to move on, but soccer, I loved it. I wasn't the best at soccer per se, but I love the experience of doing another sport.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, now that I've been involved in baseball so much, um, you miss the other things that you could have done.
Mm-hmm.
And basketball, I will say for me, I always felt the best playing baseball when I was coming out of basketball, because you had your legs underneath you and you felt like your cardio and was great. And even when you're in a defensive position in basketball, when you have to take ground balls all the time and for baseball and
Mm-hmm.
spring training, you felt like your legs were ready. Or at Gilman, that's what I felt like. It would be, basketball's done, I'm going to head into baseball, and whatever fitness tests or we had to do to get ready, I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
But the experience here at Gilman, man, I loved it. I loved the sports component. Actually, a lot of my great memories are from being here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really cool thing, just because as you move on and move forward, there's no guarantee you're going to have those experiences. We don't all have the opportunity to go and play in college or even play professionally. And these vivid moments that you have here in high school at Gilman are special.
Yeah, and especially in such a competitive league like the MIAA. I think I was saying on the last podcast, so many guys here, and some of the culture with lacrosse at least is, where are you playing next? What's the next step? Where are you playing D1 in college and whatnot? And my take on it, after having played Division I lacrosse, played in high school, and now teaching at a high school and coaching at a high school, is like, it doesn't get too much better than MIAA league game, and like the playoffs and the competitive spirit around here, and everyone at the school caring about whether you won or lost or played well, parents and alumni and fans coming out. There's nothing really like it, even at the college level, unless you're, top dog, but that's rare.
No, and that's the thing, in this area in the MIAA, there is a special culture, and it is different from a lot. I know a lot of different areas, they have good rivalries, good communities that surround the high schools, both private and public. But you're right. Like I never played lacrosse, but all my friends played.
Mm-hmm.
And to see some of those games, and I remember specifically, I think it was 2011. A lot of my best friends are on the lacrosse team, and they're playing boys Latin in the semifinals, and they are down 3 or 4 goals, I think, in the last minute and a half, 2 minutes. And with I think they might have been a man down, and they had a miraculous comeback. And it was one of the most electrifying experiences for me to see everyone revolve around it. They come back, they win in overtime, and then they win the championship.
I think it was Ryan Tucker.
It was Ryan Tucker, and that was unbelievable. And I'm fired up, and it was just so cool to see. And I think another part where here, when you move on to college, you're going to make a lot of great friends. You're going to have a lot of great experiences. But there's something for me with going in the trenches with your friends here,
mm-hmm.
and that you're going to classes with every day, and it's a more it's a closer environment. Everything's more I don't have the right word, but you just feel everything feels closer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're going to a big university and there's all these people. The high school, we have 500 students or so, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And in your class, 100 and some people. So everybody. You're spending a lot of time, and you're seeing this evolution. And for me, there was no better feeling. And even I was lucky to win the baseball championship and a basketball championship were the two that I won for varsity. And both of those, I wouldn't trade those experiences for the world.
Mm-hmm.
And those teams and those guys. And it's mainly because of those guys on the team. That made it so special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I share an office with Ned Emila, who's a Gilman grad,
Yep.
and he talks about playing football here, and one of the things he really liked was how everyone on game day wore their jersey to school on the Friday or whatever. And we did that at my high school too, but it's because people care, like, oh, you're on the football team, you have a game tonight, maybe I'll come out and check it out. Like, people are aware of what's going on in athletics on campus at school all day long, and then they're going to come out and watch you play. It's very, I think you're right, very close knit, and it gets people to invest in the sports here. It's a cool atmosphere.
Sure. I mean, growing up, and things change. But Gilman McDonough for football. So I've been at Gilman since I went from pre-first to graduating my senior year. And these memories I have of the Gilman McDonough football game. And I know people kept saying it growing up, beat McDonough. And I got into high school, and sometimes it was Calvert Hall was the more rival that year, and McDonough was more down. And during my time in high school, we had a really good run. Our football team had a great run. But when I left Gilman, then it went back to being that special connection with that rivalry and those experiences. And another thing too, I wish I dove more into watching more of my other peers play their other sports, whether it was from water polo to volleyball, which volleyball is a lot of fun to watch as well. I had seen a couple games, but it marvels me how many athletes are in our school and how great they are at everything. And there's so many different things. And it is just a really, really cool thing. And it's a thing to be proud of. A lot of people from track, cross country, wrestling, water polo, swimming, all those sports, it takes a lot of talent. And sometimes they don't get the recognition that they deserve, but it's really cool. A lot of people have a lot of great individual skills at a, smaller school per se.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're all, at least now, they're all working on their sports outside of school because you've got to keep up with. That's the thing, is it's almost in lacrosse, at least, and I'm sure it's the same in baseball. Yep. It's such an arms race to be the best in your sport, and it's so competitive to play in college and whatnot. And everyone wants to do that for the most part. If you're playing at this level, they're all doing things outside of school to enhance their game, which is taking away a little bit from that multi-sport athlete model that maybe was more in vogue when you were in high school and when I was in high school. Now it's like lacrosse all year round. We're playing club in the summer, we're playing club in the fall. We might not even play for our school, which is disappointing, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's hard where you're hearing all these things that, hey, you need to work hard because this is going to get you to the next level. But on the flip side, from a mental standpoint, and from what I've seen with guys, when you put so much effort into one thing, and especially then when you get to college, there's a higher chance you could burn out. Now, if you love the sport and you want to do it, no one's going to tell you not to do it. But coming from a guy where I still at least kept two sports alive, I can't tell you how much I miss playing basketball. I miss playing the other sports, that it was different, and you never know how you really feel about it till you can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And you're putting so much time into one thing, and believe me, I had a lot of friends that did the same thing, especially with lacrosse, but they were really great athletes watching them go play soccer. And I know how good they were with lacrosse. I mean, like, wow, it was awesome to see. You can go out there and play, and they made a difference for the team. And it's a different mindset, but definitely the mental aspect. It's a lot to ask to ask yourself to do one specific thing over and over and over again. And I hope if people have the choice that they want to keep their options open, mm-hmm. because again, those moments are going to be gone, and you might really like something that you never thought you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you learn so much from those other sports too. Like,
sure.
I never really liked football. I played football in middle school and growing up, and never really liked it. I was like, why am I running into these guys with my head and playing? And I remember I played Pop Warner football, and I had to spit weight because I had to make the weight. I was like chewing gum before, because I was one of the bigger kids.
Yeah.
To chew gum before I got on the scale and try to get from 95 down to 94 so I could play in the game. It's absurd. Yeah. But football taught me a lot and influenced my lacrosse game a lot, because I was maybe more aggressive, or I used my body more. I wasn't afraid of contact. Mm-hmm. Like, playing multiple sports for me, and basketball for sure.
Yeah.
The movements, the picks and rolls, it's the same game as lacrosse, really.
For sure.
But whatever it is, I mean, it's going to help you. Soccer probably helped your baseball game in some ways, and basketball for sure.
Yeah.
Mentality, all that stuff. It all carries over to whatever your main sport is.
Yeah, and I guess, I have a question for you then. So if all the sports that we're talking about that had this mentality, are there any sports that you wished you did when you played, or when you were back in high school?
To be honest, I picked this up during quarantine, but tennis. I love tennis. The only thing is it's during lacrosse season, but I'm obsessed with tennis. Like I love to play tennis, and I think if I put some time in it, I could have been okay at it because I've got decent wingspan. But I think it's one of the hardest games because it's one-on-one. It's so mental.
So mental.
I get in my own head when I'm playing my friend at the park in the summer, and I'm like, you just made 3 mistakes in a row. You better.
Oh yeah,
you better turn it around.
You're always your worst enemy, but it's magnified when it goes from a team sport to an individual game.
Yeah.
And you're going up, okay, well, don't mess this one up. Oh, you messed this one up again? Well, you got to figure it out. Oh, this is a disaster, and it's a whole different game in your mind. Yeah. There's a game going on in person, and then you have a fight going on internally.
Totally. And I can't imagine playing in front of a bunch of fans, playing tennis in front of people. That is. Talk about mental, and I'm sure it's the same as baseball, and I wanted to ask you about the mental part of baseball because I've never played the sport. Like my dad didn't even let me play t-ball. I was given a lacrosse stick in the crib, and that was it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about the mental aspects of baseball and maybe the other sports that influence you in terms of the mentality you have to bring to baseball.
Yeah, baseball is it's a beast of its own. I mean, in all sports, again, they have their own strenuous situations, and they take a toll on you both physically and mentally. Some more, football and lacrosse, those are going to be more physically challenging experiences. Baseball, not necessarily. It's going to be that you're physically exhausted all the time. But, and this is the crazy thing. Baseball, if you think about it, the best players in the world, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you are considered an all-star. You are considered one of the best players in the world if you fail 7 out of 10s in the major leagues. And you go, in what other sport can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is there's none. There's no other sport where you can go, hey, I got hit 3 times out of 10. I'm awesome.
Right.
And you think that, you can go up there and do it, but you can't. And I think that's the hardest thing as a position player, at least, is you have an expectation to go out there and hit this ball. But then the pitcher dictates everything. Mm-hmm. So you got to hope your timing's right. You got to hope that you're seeing the ball right and you put a good swing on it. And sometimes you can do everything right as a hitter. You can hit a ball as hard as you possibly can. And then, the guy in center field, he catches the ball. Oh, that's an out. Oh, it's another out. I hit the ball right back at the pitcher. Oh, wow, how'd he catch that?
Mm-hmm.
And then your confidence goes, man, I don't think I can hit a ball better than that.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you can have the worst swing possible, shatter your bat, and it bloops over the third baseman. You go, wow, that was the greatest feeling that you got it.
Mm.
So I think that's the hardest thing, is dealing with the emotions of like the unpredictability of the sport. Dealing with failure constantly is the hardest thing.
Mm.
I struggled with that a lot growing up, and I still struggle with it. I mean, believe me, if you're in June or July playing baseball and you haven't had a hit in like 6 or 7 games, you're 0 for 20, and then you try everything in the books. And when I mean everything in the books, you'll try a different bat, you'll try a different drill, maybe you're wearing different socks, maybe whatever, you change everything you possibly can. And even though it's not going to really do anything, it changes your mind. Like, hey, try to free up your mind a little bit.
Mm.
And if it works, you keep doing it. Whatever it is, you keep doing it, and that's what you tell yourself. So
when you were growing up, were there certain experiences where you learned when did you learn failure is a part of this game and try to start taking your failures and applying these different methods and different thought processes and ways to move on from failures? Like, when did that start to happen for you?
So I identified that. I did identify it in high school, but at the same time, you're at a younger age where, especially in high school, you believe if you're playing well or you're getting looked at for college, that you're going, I should dominate. I should be playing well all the time. And the reality is it's not the case. And I understood it, but I couldn't identify it. And with basketball, when I played, you had the expectation when you played well, or if you scored a lot, or you were a scorer, and say one game you weren't scoring well, but you could really help in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
I could go, I'm going to play really good defense. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to rebound the basketball. I'm going to find the open guys. I might not have one part of my game, but I'm going to keep working. So that type of thing, understand that in high school, started to help.
Or if you're an all-star in basketball and they shut you down, like you're the best player on your team, they shut you down. That's all right. Go set a pick and do intangibles.
Do the little things, and you can control that. And that was the thing with baseball. It's hard to really do that. You can go out and, hey, go play defense if you're a hitter, or if you're a pitcher, get the next guy out. You can do that. But with baseball, a lot of things when you're a position player goes down to when you're hitting. And so when it's baseball's a team sport, but it's so individual at the same time. No one can go into the batter's box and do it for you. You have to do it. It's you versus the pitcher. So you have to figure out, how can you get over the last at bat, and how can you help the team in some way the next one? Because you could come up with a chance to win the game. But if you are battling yourself too much about the failures, about, man, I don't feel good today, it's not going well, I can't see it. If your attitude starts to drop, you're defeating yourself before you get in the batter's box. And that was something actually probably in the last couple of years where it started to click more. It's like you can understand a concept of why you can understand failure, you can understand it's going to happen, but then having to actually go into the moment and do it. Like do it in the sense of, hey, I acknowledge that I'm failing with things, but I'm going to change. With one thing I can change right now, I can change my mindset. Hey, I'm 0 for 4 today. I've struck out 4 times. I've missed every single ball that's come by the plate, or even if it's in the dirt and I'm swinging at it, I'll go, hey, my 5th at bat, this can be the one. This can change the whole day right here. Hey, we can win the game right here. And just that glimpse of hope, your mind goes, well, hey, I can do this. But the minute you go, oh shoot,
doubt.
It's over, it's doubt, it's not going to happen, it's I don't know, I don't feel confident, your hole's just dug deeper.
How do you prevent that doubt from creeping in? Because I know that, that's even when I told you when I'm playing tennis in the summer, the doubt starts to creep in. I have a big lead and he's coming back on me. I start to lose it a little bit. How do you prevent that from happening in baseball?
And it's still an ongoing process, right? Doubt's never going to go away from your mind. It's human nature, it seems, to, when things are even going well, you're going to have these side thoughts come in at any point. If anything goes on of being, well, it's like this little voice wants to have you have this conflict that's going on. And the problem that we have is if we answer that conflict, I think. So if you're focusing on one thing. So if you're playing tennis and you're getting ready for a serve, and all of a sudden you're going, man, I'm worried he's coming back or something's going on. We know what's happening is you're thinking about what possibly could happen, and you're thinking less about what's actually going on.
Yep.
So it's like you're diminishing your chance to get ready for the serve. You're diminishing your chance to stay in that moment. And I think that's, for me, that's what I try to focus on. Is I go, hey, these thoughts are going to come into my mind. You can just say, like, hey, I acknowledge that they're there.
Just notice them.
They're noticed. But, then take a second. If you need to look at, if it's tennis, look at your racket. For me, if I'm hitting, look at my batting gloves, look at my bat, take a deep breath.
Oh, so you have little tricks.
I have little cues that I can do to try to do that. And it's sometimes if I have the chance to reset, baseball, if you're in the dugout or whatnot, and things come to your mind, you maybe just move around, go get a drink, walk around, just try to do something. So whatever it is that works for you. But it is crazy that the mind is so powerful that a little thought that goes into your mind can take your focus off of the big picture. And the biggest thing, I think, is just how can you stay more present? And the thing is to not fight what comes into your mind, but just be okay with it there and then come back.
Right.
Acknowledge, back to the moment.
Yeah. And the more you entertain or think about it, or loop, I have this term loop about it, where I continue to return to it and think about it.
Right.
That's not the way to do it. It's notice it and then return to what you're doing.
Exactly. I can't remember any time for me where I was in a batter's box and sometimes the pitcher would just hold the ball too long. And so I'm sitting there and I'm ready to hit. And I had my plan already in place. So say I was going to look for a fastball, that at bat. And I'm like, all right, I'm expecting he's going to throw me a fastball. And then say the pitcher shakes it off. He shakes it off. He's not starting his windup, and you're just sitting there in the batter's box, and you're ready, and you're going, okay, I'm still thinking fastball. And then you go, but what if he isn't going to throw that? Or what if he's shaking it off? Do I think of, and then as soon as this other thought comes into my mind in the beginning, and I'd sit there, I'd be like, no, like, okay, you're ready. And this other thought is conflicting me. And he pitches, and I have this struggle inside of me. I don't remember ever getting a hit during that at bat. When I have a moment where the doubt's coming in, if the pitcher didn't start his windup, or even if he did, and I have the opportunity to take the pitch, I'll take the pitch. Be like, hey, you're confused now. Let it go. Or if, hey, timeout. Say, can I get time? Back up and be like, whoa, whatever there it is. Let's clear the mind again. One thought. What is it? Okay. Is it fastball? All right, I'm thinking fastball. Move on. Back in it. It's like a reset you got to do for yourself.
Yeah. That's funny. We my college lacrosse coach had this term and he would have one of those movements too. If something's going on, if you're thinking too much, if you made a bad play, two chaps to the chest, reset, and then you're back.
I like
it's like
that.
two taps.
Yeah.
But when you're getting ready to hit like that, is your mind are you thinking that whole time, or is your mind cranking like that, or is it better to have a quiet mind in that moment?
You definitely want to have a quiet mind, but so for me, before, I would think when things went wrong for me, I thought about my mechanics and then what was going on. But the thing is, when you go into the game, practice is for your mechanics. Practice is for getting yourself ready for the game. And once you're in the game, you got to trust what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only thought should be, what am I looking for? What am I trying to accomplish here? And if it's, hey, I'm going to take a pitch, or hey, I'm looking to look for this pitch, you stay with a plan. I think so. That's the biggest part for me, was having a plan, and that's my only thought. And then don't worry about anything else. So it is a relatively quiet mind, but at the same point, you have an idea, a game plan of what you're trying to accomplish. And then that's what I try to do. Because at the end of the day, you really just need to have one thing on your mind when you're in that moment. And I think the same thing. I mean, you can tell me. I mean, when you were playing lacrosse, probably, and it's different. Did you think as much about? Was your mind thinking so much about things, or did you just trust your body as you kind of went about your movements and the pass? Or sometimes, if you had to make a pass, I'm assuming your thought would be, all right, I'm going to make this pass. But is that right? Is that the only thing you think of when things go right? Like, hey, all right, I'm looking at the defense. All right, I'm going to make this pass.
Right. Yeah. I the way I explain that and the way I try to think about that, it's tricky, because you want to, when you approach your defender, for me, if I'm going to the goal and I'm attacking you as a defender, I'm thinking about the move that I want to do. Like, I want to do an inside roll on you. I'm a little bit bigger than you. I can take you to where I want you and get inside of you and use my body.
Yeah.
But if you prevent that, or a slide comes, or things are unsettled in my plan, I have to be able to adjust on the fly.
For sure. And that's a little bit different, at least in that case, because you have to adjust. But then, at least in the first thing, you have a certain idea that you have to do, and then you have to learn to improv if you have to.
But I think it's good to have that intention in your head. Oh, what do I want to do with this guy? Where do I want to take him?
Yeah.
But I would say maybe in lacrosse, there's more decision making on the fly based on what comes at you. And it sounds like in baseball, it's your intention is the same the entire time, and you're reacting.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm curious with you. So, where do you stand on when your emotions when you play? With lacrosse, and I'd say for football, I feel if you're more ramped up and you're more energized, you're more ready to go, I'm going to go lay someone out, or I'm going to, you have this higher energy level. Do you feel like that helps you, hurts you, or a little bit of both?
I would say having a quiet mind for me helps me more. Like the more that I'm having fun and the more that I'm not thinking, I have an issue of overthinking in some situations. And for guys that are looking to play at the next level, you have to think more, but I think it's being more prepared, like you were talking about. Like, if you go into a situation, you're more prepared, you trust your instincts, you trust your practice, you're ready to go. You don't need to think. If you're less prepared, that's when you start thinking. That's when you start sucking, really.
Yeah, because I was always wondering because in basketball, if I got ticked off and I was mad, say someone threw an elbow or I'm not, playing well and I'm getting mad and maybe there's a little trash talk going back and forth, I could channel that anger or frustration and go out there and try to be more aggressive, be more physical,
Mm-hmm.
and I could use that to my advantage if I could. But in baseball, I can't do that
Yep.
because baseball, and it's going back to the thing about preparation and quiet mind, because in baseball, if you try to do too much or you're mad, the angrier you get and you try to swinging harder is not going to make you, necessarily be a better hitter at that time. It might help,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm the same way, like you're saying. I need to keep my emotions in check. I need to have my mindset more in control than my emotions.
But with that said, I think like if I got ticked off and it makes me more focused, like if
Yeah,
you elbow me and you foul me flagrantly, if that turns me more into
that
the
triggers
game
you.
and that
Yeah,
focuses me, that's gonna benefit me
for
too. So
sure.
it really depends.
Depends on the situation.
But
That's been a constant thing that I've seen is emotion in it versus like a mental plan. Like those two things. There's the mental and the physical and emotional side of sports.
there's a balance to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious so how did basketball and other sports you played growing up influence your mentality in baseball? Because baseball seems like its own beast just from talking to Coach Sheets, talking to you, talking to my friends who play baseball. It seems different than those other sports that you played. But how did that help you? Definitely helped you in a physical way and
Yeah.
in conditioning, but mentally, how did it prepare
Mentally,
you?
it helped also. Again, I think it goes back to the team aspects of when you're interacting with more people. And with every sport that you do, communication's a big thing. And even in baseball, even though it's an individual battle, when things aren't going well, you need to communicate with coaches, you need to communicate with peers, and you need to try to find a solution and to be able to sometimes even problem solve. Whether it's you internally are to problem solve or you get help problem solving. And I'd say with the other sports and specifically with basketball, learning how to deal with those interactions made it for me easier. If I had a disagreement or we were on the same page defensively for basketball or on our offense, we weren't running the same play, we weren't seeing the same thing, having those constructive conversations, they might get, sometimes they can get a little heated and sometimes things are said that we can't say here. But then you work it out and you go, okay, and something better comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, at least with baseball, you try to be your own evaluator. Like every sport, you try to be your own evaluator, but sometimes it's hard to see everything through your own eyes. You need someone else to see it through theirs. To be, hey, you might think you're doing something. Like, oh, I think that I'm doing the same mechanic, and say my hands are in like this spot by my shoulder, and they go, well, hey man, like, are you trying to have it? Someone else can come along and go like, hey, what are you trying to do? Like, I noticed your hands are higher or your hands are lower. And you go, no, I don't think so. I was like, no, like, and either they video you or you believe them, and you go, huh, like, I didn't feel I was doing that.
You don't notice it.
You don't notice it. So I think just like those types of things, those interactions with your peers and teammates, it helps build up that like rapport and even trust, because it's sometimes hard to put your trust in some other guys that if you feel they don't fully like understand every concept that you go through. And mostly with teams and the best teams that have success, they have a great bond, and there's usually a trust that goes on there. And I think that still correlates, and the same thing still correlates in baseball too.
The communication part is a little bit tougher in baseball because it's more what's going on in your mind. How do you work those kinks out with other people when it's really, it seems to me like a lonely experience?
It is, and I think I'll give you an example. I had a hitting coach a couple of years ago where him and I were not on the same page, and I didn't think that he liked me. I wasn't in particular with him because we could never get our language of what we were talking about right. So he was trying to tell me one thing, and I was trying to tell him how I was feeling, and we couldn't get it together. Then it so happened the next year, we're matched up again as I'm moving up, with the Orioles, my first reaction was like, great, like we're gonna go through this whole thing. It's gonna be a disaster. But then him and I had a moment where we talked, and then we got past that point. So, and he ended up being my biggest advocate, and I was able to figure out things a lot quicker when I got in slumps, and I stayed out of a lot more slumps because of it. And you're right, it is a lonely experience because you can't fully explain what's going on in your mind. So you have to pick and choose, what you can get out to try to have someone else explain. And that's where, like, when the emotion part comes in, and when you're saying, I feel this, or I'm angry, or I'm frustrated, if you try to break it down in a more, I don't want to say a controlled way, but in a way where someone can understand your language, I think that's like the biggest barrier. We like,
it's a valuable skill in life.
yeah,
I think.
yeah. But so for me, I was talking about like, I need to pick my leg up, and he would talk about like, well, hey, you need to transfer back, and it's like different words like that. We're trying to get to the same thing, but initially we didn't get like,
you didn't have the same language.
Exactly. And you're like, huh. So it's working through like those things. And I think that's the beauty of having it. And even like, I talked to my dad about this, and he had similar things where he would have similar conversations. But even when my dad got to the highest level that he got to, he still used the people that, knew him the best and had a communication with them to go, hey, this is what I think. And he would go, okay, like, oh, that makes sense. And even when he was at the top of his game, he still needed help. And I think that's a valuable thing. You have to be okay and understand it, even when things are great, or even if you've had so much success, you still need other people to help you get to where you are and keep you there.
Right. People who understand you the best and know your language and can speak to, your game for a long period of time.
Yeah.
It's all important stuff.
Oh, for sure. So it's interesting. I'm still trying to learn it, to be honest. It's still a struggle, but I got a lot of great people that want to help, and that's, grateful for that.
What's it like working with you were talking about earlier that you're working out with your dad, and he's, you spending a lot of time at Navy training and stuff right now. What's it like? I know your dad coached you here at Gilman, right?
Yep.
And when you were here in high school, what's it like having your dad as a coach?
It was interesting. So, one, having Coach Sheets and my dad as coaches, I think, and I still will say this, that was, it was being a player and not just being the son. And for me, knowing Coach Sheets for a while, but having those two like guys that had all the experience they had as professionals, that was a really cool experience for everyone, and they know so much. So first off, there's that's great. And the other part, my dad traveled a lot, and to have my dad around more for those interactions, for me, it was more time for him to be around me and to do things. And it was really cool. And then there were some times where I had a tough time understanding I understood what he was talking about or trying to teach me, but I wasn't ready to fully understand it. And then on the flip side, he didn't understand the expectations that I was going through, given, his career and what he did in baseball. So we couldn't get on the same page, and that took some time. And actually in the last couple of years, I got to the point of understanding fully what to do now with what he's talking about, and he understands more about where I am. And it's been great that COVID unfortunately shut down so many things, but the silver lining for me is, my dad and I get to work daily on these things, and we get to put in hours of time in just him and I. And it's really cool, not just from the sense that I have a great baseball mind and I get to work on that, and that's a blessing, but the other blessing is like, I get to have more father-son time. And I think that's something that, you never know, or you'll always cherish those things, because you never know how much time that you're going to have with that. And some people don't get that experience. So I definitely don't take that for granted.
Right. Even outside of baseball, you're just hanging out with your dad.
Exactly. And it's cool. And it's a big part of our lives have been baseball, and it still is baseball. But, some of those moments, it was interesting because he was away when I was growing up. He missed out on some of those moments of being, having those father moments with his kids, and he still did a ton. That's not what I'm saying. But to now have these moments, it's kind of like some of the years where you missed it. So it's like making up for some lost time for him. So it's cool. It's cool. And then we can, we'll goof off, we'll have fun, we'll do some fun games in there, and then he'll try to prove that he can still beat me in X, Y, and Z and show me up still. So, I don't really like that, but
Yeah.
it's good banter. It's good fun.
It's funny. And it's similar with my dad played lacrosse and he played at Hopkins, and he was a great player, but he's such a different player than I am.
Yeah.
I'm way taller than he is. He's a short little guy and he's very quick, and that's just not me. I'm not quick at all. Like I'm a crease attackman and he's a shifty lefty attackman. But he coached me my whole life. And it's funny how we have such different games, but I've taken everything I know about lacrosse really from him, and from him giving me the stick when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about how, like, the differences between your game and your dad's game, but the coaching and spending time with him and him talking to you about baseball is still effective.
Oh yeah, I mean the big thing. Well, it's not so you and your dad are both lefties.
I'm not a lefty. I'm a righty. I'm a big righty crease guy, and he's a shifty lefty.
But when you play basketball, don't you shoot lefty?
Yeah, I have a weird thing.
Yeah. So okay.
I kind of shoot with two hands, but I'm lefty in basketball.
Okay, so I'm not losing my mind.
No.
Okay,
Yeah, it's funny you remember that.
I remember at first I'm like, man, this guy's got a great left hand. I'm like, oh no, he actually is left-handed. Cool. I was pumped because I'm left-handed, but
yeah.
But you're righty in lacrosse. Okay. Well, okay, fair enough. I stand corrected. But so with my dad, he's all righty and he played shortstop. I'm lefty in everything I do. I right left, I throw left, I bat left, I kick
everything.
Left. I probably think left. I don't know. Like everything possible, it's left.
That's funny. Some people are lefty in everything, and then like me, righty in something else. Like my dad's righty, I think, in everything. Plays lacrosse lefty though. I don't know. It's weird.
So I actually have a better handshake with my right hand, but that's the given. You get used to that. But everything else left. But yeah, so like with my dad, a lot of the baseball lessons, I've seen things through his eyes. And just like you learn so much from your coaches and your dad or whoever helps coach, and so those things were great. But still, there's some things, again, it's kind of still hard to relate because, I'm playing different positions that he did, and we're two different guys. He's a tall guy, but, I still like to get on him that if I don't slouch, I'm the taller one.
You're mostly same height, or is he
I'm a little. We're taller. Okay, we're gonna clarify this. It's 1.5 inches taller, just for everyone that wants to know that, and I'm proud of that. And I'd like to say that'd be better looking, but apparently I look kind of like him, so I can't say that exactly. Anyway, but so he does have a great baseball mind to help me with those things, though. But again, it's still different because he didn't play those positions himself. So there's a lot of the majority of things you're learning from him, but then I'm still learning a ton of things. It's just like everything in life, right? You go and you do something and you feel like you're an expert in almost everything, but things evolve, things change, and you hear different things. So that's the thing that's happening in pro ball, that I'm seeing more stuff that maybe I never thought of. And you go, huh? Like, wow, that's a different thought. Let me try. That works for me. Great. Mm-hmm. And even for him, he's had, I don't even know how many years involved with baseball, and he knows so many things in and out, but he's still learning. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beauty of things with baseball and with life.
Mm-hmm. For sure. What are some of the things that you guys are working, like when you spend so much time with him one-on-one working on baseball, what are some of those things that you're going through?
So hitting wise, I try to hit the ball. That's the starter. Just try to hit it. But more importantly, we set a skill set or a drill set that works, and then we keep growing. And I talk with the Orioles as well as things that we want to work on, and I try to incorporate what they want me to focus on, and then what my dad and I. And it's essentially, we like to get on the tee, hit the ball off the tee, try to focus on, the biggest part is like getting your weight back in baseball and having like a good weight shift so you can get to a power position, feel strong, and then everything comes together and you can try to, drive the ball. So it's like those parts evolve. So, and as the winter goes and we get closer to the spring, we're to keep adding more things on. So right now it's, say we only do 30 minutes of hitting, and we break down, but each time we'll talk about, if something doesn't go right, then we'll say, all right, hey, let's talk about this. Or, did you feel like you got did you get your weight back enough? Is your front shoulder flying off? Or how do you feel with, your hand position or X, Y, and Z? And then we just have a talk about it. And sometimes it's like you do the drills, but then you talk it out. You talk about what's going on. So that's a big part. And then we'll do just some fielding drills. We do a game. It's a common game for people with baseball. It's just called Pepper. Like they had the kids, a lot of kids that we do growing up. Someone gets the bat, throw the ball at the kid who has the bat, and he tries to just hit it back to the guys lined up, from 10 feet away or so. I think my dad wanted more to do that so he can get a bat back in his hand. But it's great for your hand-eye coordination. And so to get my endurance back for fielding ground balls, we do five or so minutes straight of I'm throwing him the ball and he's just trying to whack the ball back at me, sometimes as hard as he can. And I've worn a couple off the shin, a couple areas that are close to really hurting and hitting home. But that's a part of it, and he loves it, and it's funny, but and it's a fun time, but that's a great reaction drill. Like you're out there and you're not even thinking about it, but this ball's coming at you, like, oh crap, you catch it or it's going to be drilling you in some part of your body. You got to react.
That's funny. It reminds me of one of my favorite drills that I think is the best drill for hand-eye coordination that I did to prepare for my position on the crease is my dad would stand on one side of the field, and then another guy who coached us, I think Mr. Lord did this a lot, but I would stand in the middle, right in front of the goal, and they would rip it as hard as they could at me, and I'd have to catch it and finish. And then go to the next guy with the left hand, catch it and finish. And they're just ripping it.
Yeah.
But it's the same type of reaction.
Yeah, and the thing is for you,
Pepper.
Yeah, the thing for you is you're going, yep, I better catch this, or this is going to really leave a mark.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the cross balls, and that's another thing. Kudos to you guys for, taking a lacrosse ball that's coming in hot, and in baseball we can get drilled by some hard
Kudos
pitches,
to goalies.
Oh my
They're
God.
psychopaths.
Psychos.
Yeah.
Psychos. Seriously, all the goalies out there, I commend you, because I do not want to take a ball off
The shin.
even though you got the protection. I'm sure it helps, right? But like that can't feel good.
But you still have to stand in front of it.
That can't feel good. I mean, do they have shin? They don't have shin protection. Yeah. So
all their shins are numb if they're in high school or college. They're numb at this point.
Yeah. That hurts me every time I see it. It's like, oh, great save. I'm like, ooh, you got no part of the stick on that. That's all body. That's all bare skin or bone. Ooh.
Yep. Oh man. Yeah, especially our goalies at Harvard playing like in sub-zero weather in mid-February. It's like they're taking rubber balls off the shins in February and freeze snows on the ground.
Like it. That's
sign
me
crazy.
up.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that. That's but that's I give you guys lacrosse players all the time. Growing up, I always used to joke with my friends about I was really one of the few guys. I have a few of my close friends that play baseball at Gilman, but majority played lacrosse. I was all hearing about lacrosse. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like you guys, you're tough, like yada yada. I get it, but and you always try to battle, and then like deep down, I'm like, okay, you guys are pretty tough. I'm not gonna say this out loud, but like you guys take a beating. But we're gonna do something else. I'm never gonna give you that satisfaction. So just that I always keep that in the back of my mind.
Yeah, it's just crazy how different the sports are. Like same season, but it's taken me a while to even really conceptualize baseball and the different processes and mentalities that go into that game. Like it's so different in lacrosse. Patience and whereas there's an element of patience in lacrosse, but I don't think it's anything like the patience necessary for baseball or the mindset necessary for baseball. It's two different things.
And that's the cool thing, there's so many each sport, and that's why I still emphasize to people that continue to do more sports, because each sport just has something that just it's different. It's just different from every standpoint. Like we're saying, baseball can be more patient, lacrosse can be more physical, but you can have more other team concepts where you have to be a little bit quicker on your feet with things. Same thing talking about with tennis. You have to still be quick with your thoughts. Golf, that talk about a mental game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I you would think that I could hit a golf ball decently well. I can't right now. I hadn't played in a while. I can hit like my wedge further than my driver because my swing's so messed up from baseball.
Yep.
And that, like, I'm serious. I think I sliced the ball, like, if the ball goes like 150 yards, whatever, I think I sliced the ball left like 200 of them, maybe more.
Really?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I played at Elkridge a lot growing up with some of the friends, and I actually know the house that's next door to Elkridge, and I'm pretty sure I just landed it into that house multiple times. And maybe they knew it was me.
That's a tough game. I started playing that recently too. It's mental. It's the same things that we're talking about. It's just a different sport.
Oh yeah, way different. It's fun.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. But yeah, it's a great experience, especially what Gilman has going on here with everything. From the experiences that you can do here. Like, these are the times to try it, and not just with sports. I even look back. I wish I'd even looked more into like the theater here at Gilman, like maybe tried to play one time.
Mm-hmm.
And, growing up, you thought, I don't have the time for this, or it's not really what I want to do. But I don't know if is Gilman still doing like the Halloween costume stuff, or is that no more?
Not
It's
anymore.
all gone?
Not anymore. Yeah.
So my senior year, two of my buddies, two of my close friends, they're like, hey, it's our senior year. We got to go out with a bang. Like, we've never done the Halloween costume. Like, you want to do it? We're like, sure, let's do it. And we put this whole thing together, and the improv that we did with it was fun. Like, we were laughing, people were laughing. They thought we were funny a little bit, but like, it was just a fun experience. And I went, man, I'm glad I did this. I was scared to do this, or I thought like this is a waste of time. But I look back, and that was one of my favorite memories of my senior year. Yeah.
All that spirit stuff. You just need someone to lead the way, and you won't regret it. It's fun.
No,
it's just fun. You don't get that type of experience again.
No. I mean, that's the thing is, in life, you want to keep doing that moving forward. Try new things. In college, you can still experiment more and try new things as well. But if you have the opportunity here, like Gilman's got so many great programs that you can do, and I think that's the really cool part that I wish I took more advantage of, and I don't regret any of my time here though, because or what I chose to do.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it would have been cool to try some more stuff when you have all these great resources of people, and you've come in and joined. This is what you now
third year
here.
Yep.
So we Gilman keeps getting these great resources, great teachers, and staff, and it's not saying you're gonna find great people moving forward, but there's a lot of people that can help you with a lot of things here.
Yeah, it's an amazing place, and that's one thing that I think sometimes you can be in high school and have your blinders on a little bit. You're thinking about the next thing. You're thinking about college, your sport, academics, right? There's a lot going on, and you sometimes have your blinders on. But for me, going to college, seeing what that's like, and then coming back here, I mean, everything I need is at my fingertips here. We have a podcast studio. They got the art room.
Yeah, you do.
We've got tennis courts, weight room, basketball, playing pickup basketball. Like, I live right down the street. It's like everything is right here. What else do I want?
Yeah, that's the thing with people when they're like, I talk to some other, friends not from here, and I constantly say like, oh, I'm going back to my high school. I'm like, oh, you going back to your high school so much? I'm like, yeah. Like, I don't think,
great.
And I go, yes, like, they've seen some pictures and like, whoa, that's great. I'm like, yeah, so why wouldn't I come back and use it? They got all these things, it's a great place, and the people here are great. Like, you come back usually because there's things that they can offer, and it's not just the actual space that they offer. And I would hope that I think a lot of people think the same way. Like, there's still a lot of people are still here that I know, and it makes a difference, the people that are still here. Like, there's great people, makes you want to come back.
Right. And they're passionate about what they do, and you can walk in their office and they'll almost drop everything to talk to you about, what they like to do. Like Cesare, for example, I went up to Cesare and I was like, Cesare, podcast, what do you think? He's like, yeah, let's do it. Now we're on our 21st episode.
That's awesome.
He's here.
That's bananas. You guys have been crushing them.
Yeah,
knocking them out.
we're having fun with it.
Yeah, and that's what it's about too. Like that, and that's the thing is you guys are doing this, and it's a side thing. It's a hobby to do, and that's the beauty of it. You know, there's so many things that you can have and experiences, and whether it turns out great or it turns out, you know, maybe not so great, you did it. It's an experience. You learned something else,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what? There's nothing more valuable at times than just figuring out more things that you like to do and what you not like to do, and then even if you don't like to do, well, hey, I just learned that I don't like this. I don't need to. You know, I check that off the list.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Here's a question for you that I was
Mhm.
thinking about for myself, really. But if baseball was never introduced to you, if it wasn't a part of your life, what do you think you would be getting into? What are some of your other passions, hobbies, things that you like to do?
that's a good question. You know, I always, at least for sports wise, I actually probably felt sometimes more passionate about basketball than I did baseball growing up. So if baseball wasn't in the picture, I probably would have focused on just going to basketball. Now, as far as uh, what I'd want to do, you know, that's still up in the air with things. I always was interested with, you know, the economy. I love the business side of things, but I also, you know, we talked a little bit about this before. The world's changing and things with sports media or even into podcasting. I like to interact with people a lot. I like to talk with people. I like to learn their stories. Um, so maybe if there's something to be involved in some sort of media capacity with that, um, you know, and I love to work with people. Could it have been, you know, getting involved with teaching, getting involved with coaching? You know, I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know exactly. And that's kind of even a point now. I'm trying to have some things on the side of topics that I'm looking up. You know, I'm even trying to get more educated in more business side of things, or even if it was, you know, with investing in stocks and um, just because I'm maybe I'll really like these things, maybe I won't, but it's a good experience.
Do you like coaching at all? Do you coach?
I've done it a little bit, and I do really enjoy it. I think it's going to be hard to say of kind of what avenue I go whenever baseball's done, but I definitely feel like that's something that's going to happen in the future. I love that interactions with the players, the coaches, and that team spirit. There's nothing like for me being involved with a group of
Mm-hmm.
individuals, and you guys are working collectively towards something.
Right.
Um, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously baseball's always been a part of your life and you're passionate about it, and it's the same for me with lacrosse.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I could do a job where I do private lessons and I do group sessions and I coach with the varsity Gilman
Yeah.
guys. I'm like I have my lacrosse stick in my hands all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have a job really without that element of it.
Right, right. And I think that's the hard thing of when you transition to do something that maybe you're not used to doing. And there's a hard thing. I know with a lot of like certain athletes are here in like professional sports where the athlete's done playing and they don't know what to do with their lives and they feel lost. And I think that's the thing. There's a lot of different options, and I always think I'm going to be involved with sports in some capacity. I just love being around it. Maybe not having a ball in my hand the entire time, but I love. There's so many components, just like you do. I mean, it's just fun, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
It's something that you grew up with, and it resonates with you more. Um, so
Yeah, it's always a discovery. There's new things out there.
there's new things out there. I mean, I'm sure this whole experience for you, you've learned a ton just being on the other side of it, and you're teaching things to people, but then you're also getting a lot out of it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is I like to learn. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
naturally a curious person. So whatever it is here, I can go into talk to a science teacher. I could talk to the librarians. They all know so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the best part for me is that intellectual stimulation. Every day I'm learning something new. People say teaching, like, oh, teacher, you're kind of doing the same thing every day. It's just not true at all.
Mhm.
It's like I'm learning from the kids. I'm learning from preparing for the class. I'm learning from the people in the English department. I'm learning from the podcast. Like,
Yeah.
I like to be stimulated mentally at all times, really. So it's great. It's fun.
Yeah, I think that's like that's the big thing, right? When you're moving forward in life, when you want to feel stimulated, you want to feel that you're actively involved with things and you're constantly learning. It feels like when people hit more ruts or they feel like they're stuck, and we've all been there. Everyone's been stuck. You know, I still have those moments, but the time where you feel like less things of that happen is when you are putting or investing time into other things, and then it piques an interest. So
Mhm.
the examples that you just gave, those are all stimulating to you, but you're putting yourself, like you're allowing yourself to recognize that and want to put the time in and learn those things, and that makes a big difference on your overall well-being, I think.
Mhm.
And again, like there could be pop something up that really could spark an idea for you, could even spark a different transition or path. And that's the beauty of things with life. And again, I wish I knew more of that when I was here, or like I had that mindset when I
Mhm.
was. And they say, I guess we get wiser when we get older. I mean, I was not the wisest of students when I was here. Um, but it's
You learn the most from life experiences, and
yeah,
I've said it before. I've learned more from teaching, I've learned more from teaching this semester
yeah,
than I probably did in school. Like learning from preparation and talking to people and experiences and failures.
mhm.
That's more valuable, I think, than actually sitting in a classroom or like writing a paper. It's those real life elements and conveying information to other people, especially smart kids like
Yeah.
at Gilman.
Hmm.
I have to be prepared for the questions, and you know,
There's some brilliant students that are here, and there's just a lot of there's a great diverse group of guys that attend Gilman, and I feel like that's the exciting part, is that you can get pushed by the students every single day.
yeah. And people would say like, what people would say, you are learning from 16-year-olds, and it's like, yeah, I
Yeah.
am. They're looking at this material in a completely new and different way from a new different generation
Yeah.
than really I would, right? They
Oh,
have
for
new
sure.
tools at their fingertips. They're coming from different backgrounds. They're raising different questions that I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, and I mean, I think for all for as we get older, it keeps us also in sync with everything that's going on, like in present day. And I mean, we're not like the oldest of the old, but I mean, for me, I don't even want to say that it's been 8 years for me being out of high school, and I feel like I was just here 2 years ago. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's slowly starting to progress. But then it's just nice being able to have that connection with others.
Yeah.
So
I want to get to your book that you brought in.
yeah,
We've been asking the guests that come on to maybe recommend a book, and it could be a book that you're reading right
yeah.
now, or a book that has changed your perspective. Any type of book that you think other people should read.
Yeah, so I actually loaned the one book to, so I don't have the one that I wanted to bring, but The Boys in the Boat was a really great read for me. I had it recommended by one of my close friends in his family, and I actually read it when I suffered a pretty bad ankle injury, and I was down a little bit, but then the story is about a rowing team, and has follows a main character on the rowing team for the University of Washington, during the 1930s, and during the coming out of the Depression and the rise of Hitler in Germany, and this rowing team goes and has aspirations to compete in the Olympics, and that whole experience was really really fascinating, and had a lot of great life lessons to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it makes you, if you don't know about rowing, which I hadn't when I was reading it, it makes you appreciate the team aspect of rowing and how in sync they are and their mindset. And like we were talking about earlier, it's a whole new sport that I hadn't put much thought into, but the boys in the boat, it makes it real for you. It makes it seem like you're in that boat,
Oh
part of
yeah.
the team.
Oh yeah. Kudos to them, hearing about, like, and I don't want to give much of it away, but some of the conditions of when they train and how they train and when they're going out there, and how you really need everyone involved, and any one little out of sync can cost the entire team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they train their butts off. They work really hard, and um, again, rowing's not something that I was familiar with growing up, but man, it was really impressive. I think a lot of people would enjoy it. Um, it was a really really fascinating story for me, and I think for a lot of people, like I said, I think there's a lot of life lessons that you can apply to yourself about, how to handle certain situations.
Yeah. And even if you're not an athlete, I think it
No.
applies to life for sure, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, and it's, I was trying to make the correlation earlier. Like, sports is great because they can have certain things that compare to life lessons, but in general, like sports can relate to life without people being involved in sports.
Mm-hmm.
You can relate on so many different levels. At the end of the day, people are human. They have emotions. They have feelings. They go through certain things, and I think that's the cool thing. The boys in the boat definitely can resonate with anybody.
And you read that when you were injured, and that just kind of helped your mindset during that
Yeah,
time.
exactly. I hadn't I got the book and I had it down in Florida, and I just started a little bit of it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what, I got to go in for all this rehab, and I'm hooked up to some machines, or I'm sitting there and I'm not doing anything, and I kept bringing it in. And I got so hooked on it that I kept reading past what I told myself. And then, the people where I was getting my rehab were like, hey, you got to move. And I'm like, oh, shoot, sorry.
Yeah.
Got lost in this.
Yeah.
So it was cool. So I hope people want to check it out.
In terms of, I'm curious now, like in terms of a approach or a mindset perspective for you in baseball, dealing with such frustrations and the patience that's necessary in the game, like where do you get those new approaches or those like ideas for different mindsets that you can have, where from reading, from other people, from podcasts, like where do you get that mental influence from?
I mean, honestly, I think it's all of those things. I think you definitely, the main two things you're saying about, reading something, you definitely can. For me, it was definitely also seeing how other people, talking with other people about things, and how to cope with that. That was probably my biggest one. And you can see, and sometimes in a way, how people handle it so well, or what they talk about, you see that example, and they sometimes can give you some different ideas to go off of. Sometimes you can also see when people are not doing things that maybe aren't well, and then like it was that kind of that out of body experience that I was talking about earlier, that you think that you're doing something, but then you're so focused on whatever's going on that you can't see outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you look at someone else and you go, oh wow, like, do they know that they're doing that? Do they know that they're acting that way? It's like moments like that. So it's the pros and cons. I definitely can learn those different mindsets from guys. And for me, it definitely helped. Some guys, I used to be way more strict and stressed about, I had to follow this plan every single time. And I had some guys that just helped me loosen up and taught me that I could do something a different way.
Yeah.
So the interactions with people definitely is probably number one, but every avenue is a possibility for learning.
It's really who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
I would say, like if your friends or your teammates have these different mindsets that are effective for them, they'll rub off on you in terms of your struggles or your failures or your injuries or even your successes, right? Like you still have to go out there and perform when you're doing well. It's all a mindset in whatever sport. Baseball, maybe baseball is a little bit more intense from that mental and kind of like chess playing mentality, right? Like trying to read the pitcher and figure out the situation, but it's all a mental game.
Yeah, one of my Latin teammates, when I was getting really stressed, is like one of the examples. And I'm frustrated, yada yada yada, and he'd always, a lot of my Latin teammates, they would call, some of the Americans like Papi, hey Papi, yeah, and I'd be like, hey Papi, like tranquilo, like calm down, like, and I'm like, why? I'm like, hey, like, I get it, I'm calm, like, believe me, I'm calm.
Yeah.
And they're like, no Papi, like, hey, tranquilo. Goes, hey, like, it's okay, and I'm like, oh, like, and then somehow when we talk about certain things, and then I started watching him a little bit more closely. The one guy that kept saying, like, joking with me. And that was a subtle little thing, right? It's just kind of playful banter. But I watched him a little bit more, and I watched how he went about it, and his like everyday type of movements. And when he started to struggle, I really didn't see, him get as frustrated. I saw him kind of keep this mellow tone to him, this very, hey, it's okay, kind of nonchalant. All right, whatever it is. So I'd look at that and be like, huh, that's interesting. Can I try to apply that?
Yeah, that's
And,
awesome.
it helped me a little bit. But still, sometimes I get in those moments where like, I'm fine. No, really, I'm calm. But
yeah, it's funny how you can just have a totally different approach and it's effective for him. And maybe you take a different approach. Maybe some of his methods rub off on you, but
yeah,
it can change. It depends on the time. It depends on your mood. It depends on what you're going through. But you can always look to other people to adopt some of their mindsets.
Yeah,
which is cool. Ryan, it's been great having you on the podcast today. Thanks for stopping by. It was a fun conversation. Covered a lot of ground there.
for sure. Thanks for having me. I'm just glad to just add on to your total. I'm excited for you guys to keep putting these out. You've had some great guests on before, and I'm curious who you guys have on next.
Yeah, and it's really all people who are passionate about what they do. Like that's the coolest part for me. I want to be around people who are like that, and yeah, it's been fun just learning where the motivation comes from and the different mindsets, different passions, different things that keep you going. So best of luck to you with everything that you're doing with baseball, and hopefully this COVID thing gets out of the way in 2021.
I hope so for everyone's sake. We're getting there.
Yeah.
But thanks again, and hope you stay safe, and everyone at Gilman can try to have the best experience they can in this tough time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No problem.